So it is September now, and I am starting to feel the fall vibes, and to go with that, I have decided I'm going to read only thrillers for a week, which, a little bit scary. I might not sleep for the duration of this video, but we have 3 books that I cannot promise I will get through, because 3 books in a week is kind of a steep goal for me because I only have time to read when I get home from work and on weekends, and then usually I have things to do. The first book that I think I'm going to read is The Last Word by Taylor Adams, which I picked up yesterday actually. I think this is about like an author and a reader that leaves a 1-star review on his book, and then a bunch of creepy things start happening to her and she thinks it might be the author's doing because he was very upset by her 1-star review. I've heard really good things about this. Sounds very creepy, so I think this will be the first one. I really want a book that I can just like fly through right now. And then our next one is None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell, which I've also heard very good things about. I think this is about a podcaster who is interviewing this woman that's the same age as her, and she's like, I have a story to tell, and then the woman gets like progressively creepier and creepier and like kind of inserts herself into the podcaster's life. I feel like this is a thriller I've seen a lot of people give 5-star reviews to, which I feel like a lot of thrillers aren't like 5-star books, so I'm very excited about this one too. And then if we get to it, I also have His and Hers by Alice Feeney, which I'm also excited about because Rock, Paper, Scissors is one of my favorite thrillers, and it is also by Alice Feeney. So this one is about a woman who's murdered in Blackdown, a quintessentially British village. Newsreader Anna Andrews is reluctant to cover the case. Detective Jack Harper is suspicious of her involvement until he becomes a suspect in his own murder investigation. Someone isn't telling the truth, and some secrets are worth killing to keep. That honestly doesn't tell me that much. I genuinely don't know what this is about, but I think I'm okay with that. I'll go into this one blind. So tonight, we'll see, I'm going to start The Last Word. So I only read 40 pages last night, which does not bode well for me reading 3 books this week. However, this book is so scary, like immediately, and I do not recommend reading it before bed because this caused nightmares instantly. I'm 40 pages in. The first chapter, like the prologue, kind of gives us the intro to the person leaving the 1-star review. Her name's Emma, and then the author being like, take this down, and then chapter 1 is immediately creepy. So far I'm enjoying it. So I've read like half of this now. This book is very hard to put down, but it is actively horrifying. Rude. Yeah, hello? Little did I know this is the last time I would see him before he was unbearably stinky and impossible to be around. There's a dog in this book, by the way, hence why I have him so close to me, because I am stressed. I am going to stop reading for now because I have to edit another video, and I genuinely don't think I should read this before bed or I will have nightmares. So I didn't actually end up reading any more of this book last night because my dog got sprayed by a skunk, and that kind of threw my house into chaos. However, I read like 30 pages this morning. This book is very scary. Not even scary, like just stressful. Like I'm like tense while reading it. I really like the way it's written. As we switch kind of between Emma's POV, like currently, and then like the pieces of the manuscripts that the author is writing like about what happens in this book. It's very like kind of meta, and it's like kind of funny sometimes where she'll be like, oh, he screamed like a girl, and then it'll cut to his manuscript and he'll be like, and I didn't even make a sound. And it's just like the contrast of it is kind of entertaining. So I'm really enjoying this book. finished reading The Last Word today. This is a very hard book to put down, and I think I might have said this earlier in the video, but we jump into the action of this book immediately, like what's described on the back with the author that she gives a 1-star review to stalking her. Like, that's literally chapter 1, which I think is great for a thriller because you want it to be pretty fast-paced. The majority of this book takes place over one night, which I also really enjoy reading, and I feel like books like that can sometimes feel slow because it's such a short time period, but it's like 300 pages of a short time period, but it did not feel like that with this one. Things just kept happening, and I was so stressed the entire time that I was reading this book. I ended up giving this book 4.5 stars. This is probably one of my favorite thrillers that I've read in a while. I think with thrillers, I normally am reading them for the plot and I don't care that much about the characters, but in this one I loved our main character. Like, she's so cool and badass, and she has depth and a backstory that we're kind of like slowly learning throughout the book, but she's also like, she's so cool. So I really enjoyed that as well. And there's a dog in this. I think I said this already, a golden retriever, and the dog kind of has a personality too, which is really cute. I'm gonna tell you the fate of the dog. If you don't want to know, you can skip to this time, but I wanted to know because otherwise I don't think I could have read this book. So this is your last warning. The dog in this book lives. She survives. There's some close calls though, which made me very, very anxious. I did have to look up if the dog died because I refused to read this, basically, if the dog did die. But anyway, overall, I highly recommend reading this if you haven't. I haven't read any of Taylor Adams' other books, but I'll definitely pick them up. I really liked his writing style. I feel like the first maybe like 50 pages are like genuinely scary. Like, I was afraid. It felt like very horror-esque, but the rest of it I think is a very like classic thriller where you're just like on the edge of your seat the entire time, like wondering what's gonna happen. Yeah, this was a good book, and I will now probably move on to Lisa Jewell's None of This Is True. Don't know if I'm going to start it today because I find it hard to read like books back to back, especially if they're similar. So I might start this tomorrow, but we'll see. I have high hopes for this one as well. I don't exactly know when the last time I spoke to you was, but I am now like halfway through None of This Is True. I read most of this last night and then a little bit of it tonight so far, and I'm gonna read some more tonight. But so far, I have slightly mixed feelings. I'm really enjoying it, and I think it's really well written. It's very intriguing, but it's also a little bit slow. I think I like my thrillers more when they're like fast-paced. You're kind of on the edge of your seat for the majority of the book. And for this one, it's very like a slow build of like anxiety, basically. So I think the characters are very intriguing, and I really want to learn more. Like, I really want to keep reading, which is good. It just took me a little bit to get into, so I hope it picks up a bit. I also think coming off of The Last Word, which was like so fast-paced and intense, this just in comparison feels really slow, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, it's just different. So it is now day 7 of my week of reading thrillers, and I'm almost done book 2. We are definitely not reading a third book, which, not surprising. I think I probably average about 2 books a week. I find it hard to do more than that when I spend the majority of my time at work. I am going to finish this tonight. I'm pretty far into it at this point, well, like almost done basically. I really like the way this is written also. I think similar to The Last Word, it's really interesting because we switch back and forth between like Josie's perspective, who is the one that's being interviewed for the podcast, Alex's perspective, who is the podcaster, and then like clips from a Netflix documentary that's being made about Alex and Josie, which is very interesting because you get like hints into the future through like the Netflix clips. I hurt my back pretty bad playing tennis last night, so I think I will lie on a heating pad on my bed for a little while and hopefully finish this book. I finished reading None of This Is True tonight. I think I literally only had like 50 pages of this left. Okay, I'm like a little bit torn on how I feel about this book. I gave it 3.5 stars. I feel like that's pretty accurate. It's definitely, I think, more of a mystery than a thriller, so that's something to keep in mind when you go into this. I think because I went into this expecting like a more fast-paced thriller, it felt a little bit slow for me. So it was definitely very interesting to read, and the characters are really interesting, and we get there's a lot of like morally grayness in the characters in this book, which I think always makes for a compelling story. And the last little bit of it was definitely really intense, but also it felt kind of predictable. A lot of the things that happen in this, they felt almost like inevitable, which is good and bad, I think, because it's good because everything makes sense, but then you're not like as on the edge of your seat trying to figure out what's happening. This reminds me a lot of The Last Thing He Told Me. If you like that book, you'll probably really like this book. I liked it. It's not one of my favorites, and that's kind of how I feel about this book as well. Lisa Jewell's a very, very talented writer. I really would love to read more of her books because I really enjoyed her writing style. It just was a little bit underwhelming. I also feel like I saw this get really hyped up. Like a lot of people were giving it like 5 stars, and that probably also kind of influenced my feelings about it because I went into it with pretty high expectations. And then after reading it after The Last Word, which I honestly feel like both of these are pretty equal as like good books, this one was just like more my taste and a thriller. Honestly, I really enjoyed them both. They were both pretty spooky. This one definitely scared me more. Like this one, reading before bed, might give you nightmares. This one less so, I think, but it also depends on what scares you, because what scares me is a demon man standing in the corner of my room, and this has that energy. And this one is like humans, and like humans don't scare me as much as demons, which, you know, like doesn't really make sense, but like I could fight a human, I can't fight a demon, you know? Anyway, my week of thrillers is over. I am really ready to read like a cozy, romancy kind of book right now, I think. But hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, you can subscribe down below for new bookish videos every single week, and I will hopefully see you in the next one. Bye!